do it again to start, in case there's somebody that was watching particularly for that.
For that.
'Cause I don't think he got that.
Right, yeah. We just have to put it into the minutes because of it's part of the.
Yeah, that's the only one you don't have to. It's the public meeting. What's that? We're good to go now?
Okay.
Okay, Dan. Dan Meeks, we need you back at the table. Okay, we're just going to again repeat that the public meeting is now closed for the zoning applications. So we're moving on now to the consent agenda. And to have a motion moved by Dan Meeks, seconded by Philip Smith, that council receive items A through D for information as they're considered routine items. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. There's no deferred items, so now we're at staff reports. Finance accounts payable report, and Michael's on vacation, so Aaron is taking his place. We have a motion moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Duncan McGregor, that council receive the accounts payable report, check distribution, in the amount of $1,494,761.34 as presented by the treasurer for information.
You should put deputy treasurer.
Any discussion? Yes, that is deputy.
Put deputy.
We're putting deputy treasurer.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Lynn Clegus, that council approve the following apportionment of assessment as recommended by impact for 2025 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there's a bunch of them there. If anybody has any question or comments on any of those. Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And that is it for the finance department. We'll tell Michael you did very well. And you didn't give us a raise. Okay, Chris is with us online. So we have a motion moved by Bill Everett, second by Dan Meeks, that council receive the Central Frontenac Fire Rescue Activity Report prepared by the Manager of Emergency Services / Fire Chief dated May 27th, 2025. Questions or comments? Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, I have two questions for you tonight. Hopefully they're easy. The first one is people are asking what the difference is between the Voyager alert system and Pulse Point. Is there any way you could give a brief summary of what the differences are between it?
I look a little blurry.
Please and thank you.
Through Madam Mayor to
Did you hear the question, Chris?
yes, I did. Can you hear me okay? No? Can you hear me?
He's having technical difficulties.
I think it's at that.
I think that one of the big difference with us was the cost.
Yeah.
Was a lot more cost effective to use the new system that we got.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I seem to be fine at this end, but I don't know what's
Okay.
happening down
What was
there.
the second one, Nikki?
My second one was just an update on how he was doing on getting prices on the fire truck for next year for us.
Can you hear me now?
The joys of technology.
You can email them.
Okay,
Mhm.
good plan. All right. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Next is the automatic aid agreement with South Frontenac. Moved by Susan Irwin, seconded by Lynn Clegus, that council renew the automatic aid agreement between the Township of South Frontenac and the Township of South Central Frontenac for the provision of fire protection services in specific areas of each municipality. Discussion. Sounds like we've helped each other, pretty much the same amounts. Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I two questions again was, in the report, it says that there's no pump or tanker truck in Piccadilly, which is true, but we just purchased a mini pump. So it said that in the report, it was only for medical responses. So I was just wondering if that was a mistake. And my second one is there's no dates on this this agreement. So is it for the last one I think was for 6 months or something? Is this an indefinite agreement that we don't have to come back and revisit it?
It's probably a year at a time, but
Look and see.
we'll see what the agreement has to say.
It's
Chris, can
indefinite.
you hear us now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? No? Oh dear.
Don't think
Okay.
so.
All right, so.
We'll just have a look here.
Let's go to.
Termination.
Yeah, it says the agreement shall remain in force until terminated by either party by providing the other party with 30 days written notice. It doesn't have any specific deadline on it in term. It just says May the 6th. Or is when they first were discussing it about the Adams, but there is no date on this that I see for
They-
termination date.
They probably review it each year as to how much work
Mhm.
each has done. Okay,
Right.
all right.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Now we have bylaw activity. Motion moved by Dan Meek, seconded by Duncan McGregor, that council receive the May 27th, 2025 bylaw enforcement and education activity report as prepared by the bylaw enforcement officer for information. Any questions for Nicole? Duncan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just an approximation, don't need an exact number. Of the fines you've issued, how many of them have been paid? Approximately.
Through you, Madam Mayor. We have a few of the residents on payment plans to get it paid up. I would say $1,500 to date that's been paid. And we are working with the residents. They've to have a payment plan.
Okay, so just a follow-up. So you've issued $12,475. So
That's correct.
we're at approximately 10%
Yeah.
payment of the fines. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. And that is it for bylaw. No, nuisance beaver. Okay. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Bill Everett, that council receive the nuisance beaver report as prepared by the bylaw enforcement officer and education officer for information. And that council provide feedback on the proposed bylaw to the bylaw enforcement and education officer not later than June 13th, 2025. So there were a number of bylaws to look at and a number of areas that are using them. Questions or comments? Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. North Frontenac is one that you have as an example in here, and how much of, I guess, of our bylaw was based on theirs. I didn't go look theirs up. And did we actually talk to them about how effective their bylaw has been in helping to mitigate any of the problems that we're seeing?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I haven't talked to North Frontenac yet. The bylaw that I have drafted, it's taken a bunch from different ones because I looked at our area here, what would work, what might not work. That's what I did when I did this draft bylaw.
Duncan?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I read the bylaw, and first of all, I appreciate what staff are trying to do here. I think we have a lot of damage caused by beaver dams in our municipality. My personal opinion is the bylaw is overreaching. And so I'd like it to come back as a policy, not a bylaw. And we try that out for a year or two and see if it's effective. Because I think we should be trying to work with landowners. And I don't know if it's intended this way, but the way it's written, we're very, I think we're overreaching.
We do try to work with landowners now to get them to do something, and it's not always effective. They want us to do it for free. Anyway, that's definitely
Sorry,
some
just
information.
response to that, we would still have to do it for free. It would just be in a bylaw.
I don't know.
That's what it says in the.
I didn't read those details.
Through you, Madam Mayor. With the bylaw, it speaks to if we notice that there's an issue, we would work with the landowners. They could give us the ability to go on there, which would save a dam from breaching, where we're talking thousands to a couple of $100 to fix a dam that could breach. And then you have people that, they're not stuck where they can't get out of the road. It's not impairing emergency services. So you kind of have to weigh the difference, a couple of $1,000 to a couple of hundred, and people's safety.
I know we try to do that now, to go in once we know that there's a problem and see if we can actually pull out some space for them before the road does get taken out. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. So it's send our comments in and it will come back to us. Doesn't necessarily have to be finished by June the 13th, but bring your comments and we'll discuss the next draft. Okay, planning report. Motion moved by Lynn Clagus. Sorry, thanks, Nick. Moved by Lynn Clagus, seconded by Philip Smith, that council received the May 2025 planning activity report as prepared by the Planning Service Assistant for information. Any questions or comments on that report? Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question's not on the report. It's a great report. Thank you for what you do. My question is there any way that we could move Committee of Adjustment to be part of regular council meetings?
No.
It can be.
Well, can it be?
Yes, it can be. What you do is you would have your Committee of Adjustment first, and then you'd go into regular council.
Which is what we do.
No, but you don't have them on the same day.
Yeah, we do.
Do you? Oh, yeah, but earlier, I think
Well, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, but I think that you wanted a little different is to put it like starting at 6 and then do the regular meeting. Was that what you were sort of thinking?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So we had discussed several options because I can appreciate the difficulty to come at 5 and stay for a 10-minute committee meeting and then wait till 6. So we were coming up with alternate solutions, and we had brought this up to, there's a couple other townships, I believe the islands do it in their council meeting, but regardless of what time you wanted it to start at, that's really up to council. But the Committee of Adjustment would be held first, and then you would go into the regular meeting of council afterwards without a break in between. So it's really up to council what you wish to do, or if you want to set the meeting at 5 o'clock and then move into council directly after that, or start at 6 with committee and proceed with council.
I guess now that Committee of Adjustment is often 1 or 2 applications, we don't need a whole hour before. Does council want to give that a try and see if it works? So 6 o'clock is regular meeting. First part of it will be Committee of Adjustment and then move right into regular council. I'm seeing some nods. Go ahead. Abby.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just not sure procedural bylaw wise if there's any amendments that need to happen in order to achieve this, but we can certainly work towards that if.
Whenever you can get it organized, just let us know that we're starting with Committee of Adjustment. The sooner the better. Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. All right. Now, the report on the Simonet building. And what I propose here is, because not everybody reads the packages, is that Kathy read her report out loud so that people can get the information. And there were some questions asked that she's going to try and address those as we go through, and then we'll take questions.
Okay. I'll start in regards to the background and not really at this point recommendations other than is to accept this report. In preparing the report, it was considered, I feel it was prudent to provide some historical context regarding the existing municipal office. So the current municipal office was constructed in 1995 by the former Township of Oso. At that time, it was to accommodate 5 full-time administrative staff and a council chamber. Following amalgamation on January the 1st of 1998, the office became the administrative center then for the newly formed Township of Central Frontenac, housing 10 full-time staff. Since 1995, several changes have been made to the building, An addition was completed in 2010, and that's the back part where the, the building inspector office and those were done. That was done in about 2010. Plus, there was other renovations in 2018 to accommodate the additional staff. And some of those that were from the front counter area, we sort of had to split up some offices. Also, too, where my office was, that used to all be council chambers. That was all made into offices. So there's been a number of additions and constructions along the way. After that, so then in 2021, after assessing the cost of expanding the current facility, the township purchased the former Harvey Barber Shop to house Public Works. Because the staff were all, it was always the mandated, I think back a number of years ago, as council felt it was important to have all staff in one location. Instead of them being split up, that residents had to go, you come to the main office and you have to go to this one, and if they're not there, and you have to go to this office. So that's what the whole idea was, to house everybody together. And so that ended up to be more cost effective, or an alternative when we purchased the Harvey Barbershop. And how that came about is that in 2020, we did explore the cost to renovate and build an addition to our existing building. And that was in hopes of a grant that was supposed to be coming available that year. That grant did not take place. It was, as Michael said, it was just like a small kind of grant that you got $100,000, and that was it. What they were talking about is that you had to have shovel-ready projects so that you're ready to roll. Alan Ravel was helping out, and he was our building inspector back then, and himself, as well as Ray Zabak from Schultz and Zabak Architects. They did some costing, and they did pictures and all that stuff as to what the addition would be and the estimated cost. And at that point was over $2 million. It was $2.1 million. And these are estimated costs. Now, more than 15 years later, the demand for the space continues to grow. The number of full-time staff has increased to 29, and that includes summer students and certainly the county staff, further underscoring the need for expanded administrative capacity. What that means is, I will give you that separate sheet in regards to staffing. Okay. So I have so many sheets and paper here that I was trying to, so that I'd have it all for council. And let's see. Let's go in here. Okay. Presently, and the reason why, presently the staff, our accommodations right now do not warrant for to have an actual boardroom or someplace where they can meet with residents, planners, etc. So they're meeting in the kitchen, which is not very professional. So also too, that the increase in staffing is attributed to many things, and especially in local municipalities, they face increased demands, particularly due to evolving provincial or federal legislation. They often must expand staff or resources to comply. In addition to asset management, reporting, and bylaw enforcement, here are several key legislative and regulatory responsibilities that maybe necessitate for us to have the additional staffing. And we've added on, for instance, there's climate change and environmental compliance. So as Andy does with the building inspector, as the building inspector, he has an assistant now to help in regards to septic, but you have to do things like greenhouse gases. There's all these reports that have to be done under the environmental compliance. Energy efficient reporting has to be done for all our municipal buildings. So between Andy and Crystal, they work after those things. Accessibility legislation. We have to be compliant with the AOD for the Ontarians for Disability Act or equivalent. So you have to have accessibility plans, audits, and implementation. And we are part of under the county to do with that accessibility. Occupational health and safety. Health and safety compliance for municipal employees. There's workplace violence and harassment policies and emergency response and preparedness plans. Emergency management. The municipal emergency management plans under the provincial and federal framework. So you have the coordination of emergency operations centers, the EOCs, and community risk assessments, which, as most of you know, we have an emergency, committee, and we certainly have the chief and deputy chief to help with those things. So we had expanded to have a deputy chief to help with that. There's also water and wastewater regulations. Certainly, we're not to deal with wastewater, but we've got sewers and our own drainage systems. There's planning and development regulations, growth management. So under the provincial policy statements or regional plans, inclusionary zoning, affordable housing regulations, heritage property designation and conservation, financial transparency and accountability. They have to be compliance with the Municipal Act for financial reporting and reporting of budgets, long-term financial plans and reserve funds, and an asset management plan updates per regulatory timelines. Michael has Aaron to help with that, but they're still very understaffed. And things like having an asset management coordinator and stuff like that would be very helpful. We also, especially in the areas, Indigenous engagement and duty to consult, especially in areas where resource development or land use planning. And I mean, Abby would know about this, is that the protocols that we have to consult with the Indigenous communities and meet legal obligations. The other is in regards to the privacy and records management, the freedom of information requests and compliance, cybersecurity and records retention policies. These all have to be done. So we've had to, certainly with more staff, with having a deputy clerk and certainly some other administrative staff has to help do some of these things because of the day-to-day operations of the municipality. The building code and fire code also. There's regular inspections, plan reviews, and enforcement. So emerging pressures, and it's not necessarily like there's things like the Truth and Reconciliation implementation and diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. And of course, with our public engagements. So that's just sort of to mention a few as to staffing and why there's been such a change of being able to, even though they tell they're going to cut red tape on us and then the provincial government, they still expect us to do all these extra reportings. Now, more than 15, so that's why I said it's after 15 years, this is how things seem to progress. And earlier this year, the former Frontenac building, previously occupied W.A. Robinson Associates, became available, prompting the exploration of new options to meet the township's growing space requirements. Council was presented with various scenarios, including purchase of an existing commercial building versus expanding and renovating the current office. Upon completion of a detailed assessment, it became evident that purchasing an existing commercial building presented a more cost-effective solution, investing in a modern facility that offers updated office space, integrated technology, and appropriate meeting areas, including an emergency operations center. It would enhance staff productivity, improve service delivery, and better support the township's operations. And as you see with the issues we're having with our lovely owl for council chambers, we would be able to have that already in technology into the other facility, the building. Purchasing the former Frontenac building, yes, it was 1.6 million. I think that came out into the public, and it is estimated at a 46.7% cost savings compared to constructing of an addition and renovating the existing facility to expand workstation capacity. In contrast, the proposed expansion would require significant investment in HVAC and septic system upgrades, as well as architectural, engineering, and site work. So the cost in 2020, was it 2021 or 2020? It was, like I said, was approximately $2.1 million. 15 years later, and I had also discussed this with Andy, as well as the architect at the time. You're looking at an estimated about, 3.1 million. So, and with that cost of buying a building, that's where the ratio came about 46. And like I said, it's sort of a estimated cost. And the reason is the municipal building is considered commercial. It's public. Where residential buildings are exempt from Part 3 of the Ontario Building Code. Part 3 has more requirements for fire protection, occupant safety and accessibility, and the larger building, the stricter the requirements are, which results in a higher cost per square foot. And that's why we have to pay more with our additions. Even when I spoke with our lawyer, he even said, you are better to purchase something that's already existing than you are to build, for the fact that nothing comes under budget. Everything's always over budget as much as you try. For instance, Andy had mentioned some couple of costs and stuff, architectural and engineering, and like I said, these are estimates. About 120,000 to do that. 140,000 possibly for an HVAC system if you had to do. 85,000 or better for a septic system upgrade, and about 180,000 for emergency operations centers upgrades. Importantly, this purchase will not create a financial burden for taxpayers, which it seems that concern for some people. It will be funded through reserves and repaid through the sale of other municipal properties. Since the assessed values of the surplus properties are based on 2016 data, we applied a 50% increase to those values to estimate current market prices more conservatively, so that to tell, if we are benchmarking. By using this approach, it provides a built-in margin of error, recognizing that market values have likely appreciated since 2016, but also guarding against overestimating their current worth. In some cases, the properties are listed at prices well above this adjusted value, which gives us an additional confidence in our conservative pricing strategy. So like I said, it explains the basis is 2016 values. We have been conservative at 50%, and we recognize certainly that the market reality highlights the margin of error, and hopefully that we should be pretty well right on. So the plan is definitely to, as we sell properties, it will be paid back into the reserves, and that's and how we're moving forward with this. We're very confident, and that's why I said we estimated a little higher so that we would be more comfortable and conservative in those figures. So as I mentioned, that the purchase of a fully equipped existing commercial building represents the most prudent investment for the township. This forward-thinking, financially responsible decision addresses both current and future operation needs while minimizing the impact on municipal resources. It ensures efficient use of existing assets and provides a timely solution that supports the ongoing growth and emergency preparedness of the municipality. So for instance, I think there were some questions that I have here that I was putting down in regards to answering some of these questions. Is things like, there was a question in regard, and I think I've addressed the one about the error in how we figured out in regards to how we're funding the purchase and what margin of error have we added in case we don't sell all the properties. But I think from what we had done in estimating higher because of the difference in the values, because as we know, the one piece of property that we already have sold, it was valued, it's 2 or 3 times that amount of what we got for that property from what the value was in 2016. Yes, in the assessment. It says, and the question also, we'll need to spend more than 20,000 to order to retrofit the existing building when we purchase for its needs. No, we do not feel that, and I spoke with certainly all of the staff. The only thing there is in regards to, I know there's comments and certainly with council to look at the boardroom there about maybe taking one of those walls out, whether that's going to, cost us money at this point. We're probably better to leave it the way it is see how it works, and then go from there. So there wouldn't be any cost that I see in regarding retrofitting what we've got. It's pretty well ready to move in. And we're talking about those with to do with the roof repairs and patches. And there's a few other things, but they are cosmetic. I think I know Bill would like to get in there and certainly do some painting and a few things before we actually move in. So what was the estimated cost of the addition to the current office to meet the township needs? I already mentioned that in regards to what the cost was, and why, the difference between residential and commercial. So that's what Andy was mentioning is because we are commercial. In regards to parking, where are we going to park or use assessing the services going forward? The front of the office will be used for those residents that are coming in to use the facilities. We will be in negotiations with the Robinsons because they have their parking there, and they are willing to enter into an agreement with us to allow some parking on that, as well as Steve has mentioned that he can go and we can park up at put a few spaces up by the school site that access Elizabeth Street. And also, will the public groups have access to the patio area and lakefront for events and meetings? Yes, this is definitely certainly a thought that was back, and I'm going to refer to an article that Madam Mayor was in the article at the time with Matthew Robinson. And it was for a community, Okay, you don't send about that one? Okay. So it can be with the proviso that we need to coordinate with us. Library, and I know there's a question as to why are we providing the library space throughout our municipality free of charge? I think that was done many, many years ago. I think maybe we can visit that a little further as we go down, because I do have some information in regards to the libraries. And I know we'll be in comments and concession with Laura Carter as well. And I think she's coming on Thursday. And you wanted to know when we take possession of the new building. It closes on June the 11th. And how long we figured that we had, transitioned to the new space. There's a lot of things we're considering, moving individuals, but we're hoping during the month of July and August that we'll be able to move in, because we have to have IT. The county wants certain dates to be in there but it is planned that it will be no disruptions to the public. We'll be making sure that staff are always available. So whether there's some in the building now until then we get to the new one. So I think that answers some of those questions. There's also sections I think in regards to, you were asking in regards to closed meetings. Okay, the requirement to discuss property matters in closed session comes directly from the Municipal Act, which governs how municipalities operate. The purpose is to balance transparency with the need to protect the public interest during sensitive negotiations. So council must discuss the sale or purchase of property in a closed session, also called in camera, to protect the municipality's financial and strategic interest. And why that is important is confidential negotiations. If details about a potential property sale or purchase, like price, location, or strategy, are discussed publicly, it could weaken the municipality's bargaining position. For example, a seller might raise the price if they know the city is very interested in buying a property, or buying might understand, the sale, the city is eager to sell. There's also legal and liability risks. Premature disclosure of information could lead to legal complications or even lawsuits, especially if third parties are affected or contracts are already in negotiations. Privacy and sensitivity. Property transactions often involve private individuals or companies, and disclosing names or details before a deal is finalized could violate privacy or business confidentiality. And it's required by law. In many jurisdictions, of course, when ours is the Ontario Municipal Act or similar legislation, municipal councils are legally permitted and often required to meet in closed session for those kind of specific positions. So just wanted to let you know that, and that's where that comes from. It comes from the Municipal Act. I hope I was able to answer some of those questions.
the one thing I can add about the library is the county, the city, and the municipalities all play a part in having libraries. We signed in 1998 an amalgamation that in order to keep the libraries in the northern municipalities, we were to provide accommodation for them. And that's what we've always done. And I think even back, used to be in the United Church Center. And if Marcel Giroux were around, he could tell us the history of it. But that was how we got libraries, is by being able to say, we'll provide the accommodation, you send the books and pay for the cost of the librarian. So,
And the county pays.
and the county does pay as well. Okay, any other questions or comments? I know there's been lots of talk in the public about what's this and that, so hopefully a lot of that will cover the questions and comments from folks. Duncan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Kathy. I sent you, 16, 17 questions and gave you less than 24 hours to prepare. So I appreciate you taking the time to give a detailed answer on all 16 of those questions. So thank you.
Okay. Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kathy, just to expand, your report was very thorough. A library space will be provided in Sherbrooke Lake.
Yes.
It's just to be determined.
Correct. And as I said, we're going to be speaking with Laura Carter. So we're in negotiations and speaking with her as to what our plans are for them. Yes.
Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we identify the number of properties that are expected to be sold? And the question about the 46.7% cost savings, that I'm assuming does not include whatever accommodations we have to make for the library.
No, it does not.
No. We figure that the thought is, it's not solid, is moving the library into the former barber shop when the Rhodes moves out, and probably putting a small addition on the back of that to make it a bit bigger. It's good parking there. It's just a move across the street. The other thing is when we sell the building, whoever buys the building may be interested in keeping the library there, which means we would have to pay rent for the library, but that too would be on the table, just depending on how quickly things happen. We have to give the library some time to get ready if a move is going to happen. So there's definitely lots of talking to happen with that yet.
And the number of properties?
There's 10 right now, right,
Yeah.
Jody?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, we have 10 currently listed as surplus, and there is approximately 127 properties throughout the township. Not all are buildable or overly sellable lots. Some could be considered lot additions, so there'll be a lot of work to do this, but we are prepared to work on all of them, but there's quite a bit.
And we have sold one already.
Correct, and we're getting ready to, I think there's another one that will be close to be listing soon too, and then we just got some more letters of opinion from another agent. So we have 3 more that we're preparing.
Good. Philip?
So the 10 properties will break even on this transaction?
I don't know.
I'm not sure because I don't know those other prices yet on those other copies, but
If not, we'll sell more.
yes, because we have a fair number, as Jody said, that is being sold. So, and it's something that we were working as, getting to it, but now gives us more incentive to get them sold.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So on top of selling these other properties, have we made any progress now that we have a closing date on the other property, our current building? Have we made any progress in getting that listed?
I was speaking to it with one of the real estate agents who's willing to help us to get through that. I've certainly had an interest of one, and there's one other individual, excuse me, might be interested in purchasing our building.
Two follow-up questions. So, Jody, you'd mentioned 10 properties. So currently, the municipality is not collecting taxes on those properties. And once those properties are sold, we are going to start collecting tax on them, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's all.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The question I was asked is why didn't we surplus these properties before now?
Staff time. Most of it was to do with staffing. I mean, Jody's taken this on herself, and she's having the students and Abby, they're going out to look at them. So it's just been to that point where it's the staff time.
And also to the bylaw that we
Yes.
have in place about how properties are to be sold makes it work intensive. And
Mhm.
we are not really following that bylaw now because we realize we're sitting on this property that
Mhm.
we could be selling.
And I
And
think
put
the
it-
other thing, why I'm saying about the staff, because the bylaw did not allow the staff to sell, it said that the staff were going to go out to sell them. Staff doesn't have the time to do it. So that's why we have to change that. And we came forth to council to have that change to allow a realtor, that we use the realtor to that. Because I think that's a little bit more, be a little quicker than the staff can do that.
They go to school to learn how to do that. Dan,
I just had one more comment comparing apples to apples. 46% is not really fair compared to a 100-year-old building to a brand new facility. So
I was
just-
only in regards
just
to
putting that out
costing.
there.
Yeah, I was only just giving you in regards to costing.
all right, we have a motion. And that is moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Cindy Kelsey. Whereas council requested the CAO clerk to bring forward a report providing further information on the purchase of an existing commercial building, including financial analysis. Now therefore be it resolved that council accept the report as prepared by the CAO clerk. And I would encourage, if you have more questions, to send them on to Kathy.
Mhm.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote. I would like to ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote. I don't have such a thing here, but I'll make it.
Where is here?
Is there?
In
This is to
here?
just to receive the report. Okay. So I don't know how to do
We
that
can put the
here.
numbers on, we can put the numbers on.
Okay, so this is number H.
Yeah.
All right. Philip Smith,
No.
you don't want the report. Okay. Dan Meeks.
I'm also a no.
Okay. Nikki Gowdy.
No.
Okay. Duncan.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Cindy.
No.
Fran. Yes. Carried.
Mhm.
So carried. I'm just going to put here recorded vote. So that will go with that. All right, moving on. Now we're going to open and close graves. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Susan Irwin. Whereas requests for quotation admin 2025-03 RFQ was released on April the 28th, 2025 and closed on May 9th, 2025 for cemetery grave opening and closing services for a 4-year period. And whereas one quotation was received, and whereas the deputy clerk and financial assistant have reviewed the quotation to ensure the requirements of the RFQ and the procurement bylaw have been met. And whereas the CAO clerk is recommending that the quotation from DG Young Cemetery Services be accepted as the lowest and only quotation for cemetery grave opening and closing services for a 4-year period. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the CAO clerk to accept the quotation from DG Young Cemetery Services for the cemetery grave opening and closing services for a 4-year period starting June 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2028. And further that the CAO clerk be authorized to obtain a purchase order. Discussion. Not a lot of people in this business. Nikki.
No, I agree with you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It says that we're going to be getting a report because of the costing, with recommendations about adjusting the cost of
Mhm.
graves and stuff, probably within the next few months.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we'll work with the financial assistant and our treasurer and our clerk CAO clerk to propose some numbers.
All those. Cemetery grounds tenders, moved by Doug McGregor, seconded by Lynn Plagas. Whereas the cemetery grounds maintenance contracts were divided into the 4 districts this year. And as a result, the following were released. RFQ at in 2025-04 Ocean District, RFQ in 2025-05, Interbrook District, RFQ in 2025-06, Kennebec District, and RFQ in 2025-07, Olden District, on April 28th, 2025, with a closing date of May 9th, 2025. Okay, and whereas 3 bids were received for Oso District, 3 bids for Hinchinbrook District, and 2 bids for Kennebec, and 4 bids for Olden District. And whereas the CAO clerk has reviewed and evaluated the tenders and has recommended the following be accepted as the successful contractors. McConville Excavating for Oso District in the amount of $7,797 plus tax. Netto Property Maintenance for Hinchinbrook District in the amount of $10,000 plus HST. Kennebec Tree and Lawn be awarded for Kennebec District in the amount of $4,500 plus HST, and Olden District $7,200 plus HST. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the CAO clerk and award the cemetery grounds maintenance contracts to the successful bidders as listed above, and that the CAO clerk be authorized to obtain purchase orders for the successful bidders, and further that the mayor and CAO clerk be authorized to execute the tender contracts. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. All right. Next is accountability, transparency, and public notice policy. Moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Dan Meeks, that council receive the accountability, transparency, and public notice policies report as presented by the CAO clerk for information, and that council provide feedback on the updated policies to the deputy clerk by June 12th, 2025, and that staff amend the policies per the received feedback, and further that updated drafts of the policy be brought back to council for consideration at the June 24th, 2025 meeting. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Admin bylaw and policy priority list. Moved by Dan Meeks, seconded by Duncan McGregor. Whereas council directed staff to prepare a list of bylaws and policies that were being updated or developed with the goal of providing an overview and assisting in the establishment of council priorities. And whereas staff presented the draft list of bylaws and policies to council on March 25, 2025. And whereas members of council have submitted their prioritized feedback to staff. And whereas staff have compiled the bylaw and policy priority list in accordance with council's direction. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that council receive the updated bylaw and policy priority list for information, and further that the CAO clerk consider the bylaw and policy priority list when setting priorities with staff. Discussion. Duncan.
I'm just wondering a timeline of a specific policy, the procurement policy. I'm wondering when it can finally be brought back to council and passed.
I'll double check with, certainly with Michael, but I think that it has to come back now. I think that you can make a notice of motion to bring that back. I think we can. So I'll confirm that for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we set a timeline to have it completed?
For sure. Yes. When would you say you want in the next month or so?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor? Carried. Safe property bylaw, moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that council receive the updated safe yards draft bylaw for information, and that council requested a legal review be conducted on the draft safe yard bylaw. Discussion. Things have calmed down with the comments and people seem to be quite pleased with the way it ended up. So all those in favor? Opposed? Carried, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that again. All those in favor? Okay, carried. A no vote is a no. All right, appointment of member to the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance. So Nikki, you said you were going to resign. You haven't changed your mind? Okay, so moved by Susan Irwin, seconded by Lynn Klages, and we're going to open for nominations. Who would like to be nominated for the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance? Nikki Gowdy? Cindy? It is daytime meetings. Okay. Cindy's the only one that wants to be nominated. So the mover is Susan, the seconder is Lynn. All right, Cindy Kelsey. All right. Anybody else want to be nominated? Going twice, going 3 times? All right. So we have a motion moved by Susan, seconded by Lynn, that Cindy Kelsey be nominated to represent the Township of Central Frontenac as a member of the Eastern Ontario Trail Alliance. All those in favor? Carried. Now, we need to appoint somebody to,
On the trail committee.
oh, that's the nomination. Now we get the appointment. So moved by, no, I can't, Cindy can't move that. So moved by Duncan. Seconded by Philip, that Cindy Kelsey be appointed to represent the Township of Central Frontenac as a member of the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance effective immediately. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Appointment of member to the Central Frontenac Trails Committee. And it doesn't have to be the same person. It can be someone else. So nominations are open. Who would like to be nominated for the Trail Committee? Nobody.
Can I nominate Cindy Kelsey?
You can. Again, that's a day meeting as well. Are you retiring? Okay. Yeah, and you could stay on the local trail committee. No? Duncan? Okay. So,
Pardon me, Madam Mayor. You're already on, so would we need a second person?
well, I'm their ex officio,
Okay.
Yeah.
but you don't necessarily have to have anyone, I guess, although, yeah, I don't know.
It's up to. I think that's up to council, certainly, Madam Mayor.
Well, maybe. Okay. Well, you can, I don't know if you're gonna appoint me. What the heck? Okay, so I go to them anyway. I might as well be appointed instead of just dropping in ad hoc. Okay, so moved by Susan and seconded by Dan that Francis Smith be nominated to represent the Township of Central Frontenac as a member of the Central Frontenac Trail Committee. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. So moved by Nikki and seconded by Lynn that Francis Smith be appointed to represent the Township of Central Frontenac as a member of the Central Frontenac Committee effective immediately. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Recorded vote. Just kidding. Communications, correspondence for action. Central Frontenac Recreation Committee, road closure. So, this is not moved by Leslie Merrigan. It was in the committee.
It was in this, that's the committees,
Okay.
who moved it and seconded in the committee,
So,
but it's down below.
all right. So moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Duncan McGregor. The council approved the recommendation from the Central Frontenac to close Central, that's
Should
just,
say Central Frontenac Recreation Committee.
okay, Rec Committee to close Garrett Street in the village of Charlotte Lake from the Charlotte Lake Public School site through the intersection of Robert Street to Elizabeth Street from 9:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. on July 1st, 2025 for the purpose of soapbox car races during the Canada Day celebrations. And further, that the manager of emergency services, fire chief, and public works manager coordinate the road closure and provide notice to the public. Discussion. Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was asked why they needed 5 hours for a soapbox derby.
I don't know.
Committee. Bill.
When we finish these, we're gonna need a couple of hundred or or bales of hay to set up the races and then take down. the raises themselves. And, people have to go up.
So it may in fact be less time, depending on what the volume is.
And Duncan had a question.
So
I also feel, because I'm on that committee, that this is the first year doing it in a long, long time, and it's sort of up in the air as to how long will it take to set up and take down things. So if they repeat it again next year, it might be a smaller amount of time.
Okay. Philip and then Duncan?
my only comment was that there was some discussion around allowing local traffic through if and when needed, so between races and such. So.
I would imagine they would do that, eh? Duncan?
My only comment was, first of all, Brianna Sargent spearheading this, so good work for her. Neat event for the community. And we just gave her $1,000 budget for it to try to increase the number of people that are coming. So it may add up the full 5 hours, which is awesome for the community.
Good. All right. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, correspondence for action, Charlotte Lake Beach, moved by Cindy Kelsey, seconded by Philip Smith. That council received the Charlotte Lake Beach bench request report as presented by the CAO clerk for information. And further, that council approved the request from Howard and Irina Craig to install a park bench at the Charlotte Lake Beach, and that all costs associated with the installation of the park bench will be paid by the requesters, Howard and Irina Craig, and that the Public Works Manager be authorized to facilitate the installation of the park bench. I talked to this lady. Her kids have moved here and she loves the area, and she loves the bench that's out past the medical center and would like to donate a bench. She loves the place. So all those in favor? Carried. We are at bylaws. So moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Susan Irwin, that bylaw 2025-23 being a bylaw to amend Schedule A4 of zoning bylaw 2011-52 as amended to establish zone regulations for all lands in the Township of Central Frontenac be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 27th day of May 2025. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Nikki Gowdy, that bylaw 2025-24 being a bylaw to amend Schedule A5 of zoning bylaw 2011-52 as amended to establish zone regulations for all lands in the Township of Central Frontenac be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 27th day of May 2025. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, any notices of motion?
No, Madam Mayor.
Any giving of notices of
No,
motion?
there are not.
Any new?
Oh,
Oh,
you have one? Okay.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's a proposal for additional severances.
okay. So you just keep that and do something with it? Okay. All right. Any new or other business before we go into closed session?
No, there are not.
Oh, Philip?
Oh, Philip.
I just have a question, Madam Mayor. There was no admin report to say, basically Kathy's regular report telling us what she's been up to. But I did want to ask Kathy about if we could talk about the reports that are coming from staff. One of the thoughts I had was around the budgeted project items we have for the year. So there's some big capital items that we look at doing. And if we can incorporate that into the monthly reports we get from the departments, hoping it maybe wouldn't take much time and maybe other council members would find it useful, but to know where we are, where the status of our budgeted projects are at. Quite often we say, well, we went through a year, we budgeted a bunch of stuff, but we didn't actually get the work done. So it's a way of keeping us all on track of where things are at.
You don't necessarily want the dollars. You want to know kind of where they're at.
Yeah, we budgeted a project. How's it, like, what's the status of it?
Is it
We started
completed or is it
completed?
halfway or?
If that's council's wishes, yes, absolutely can do that.
So that would come from the department heads.
Mhm.
Yeah, they all provide monthly reports to us.
Yeah. Okay. Duncan?
Sorry, Counselor Smith, just for clarification, what, like, I think you should pick like a dollar amount of what we want to see for the capital projects. Like, do you have a set amount? I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I think just for clarity, it should be like a set number of like any project over $100,000, over $25,000.
I would say anything we send a RFQ or RFP for.
Okay. All
Yes.
right.
So that way then I can give direction for the managers.
Okay. All right, we have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Bill Everett. That council resolve into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss A, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, B, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Discussion, all those in favor? Carried.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.